Hello everyone, so I'm Shreya Biswas and today I will be presenting my research on the topic of data-driven customer segmentation for e-commerce personalization, a comparative analysis of clustering techniques on an online retail dataset. So this project is in partial fulfillment of my global MBA degree in business analytics at Liverpool Business School at Liverpool John Moores University. So to begin with, a little bit of introduction and background. So, the past decade has witnessed exponential growth in the online retail sector, fundamentally altering how consumers interact with businesses and shop for products and services. So, driven by these advances in technology, increasing internet penetration, as well as evolving consumer preferences, e commerce has grown dramatically, creating opportunities as well as challenges for retailers. So, as you can see, the global retail e commerce sales climbed to an estimated 5.8 trillion US dollars in 2023 and forecasted to reach US $6 trillion dollars in 2024, sustaining annual growth rates above 8%. So building upon this, central to navigating this digital transformation successfully is the practice of customer segmentation. So what is customer segmentation? Customer segmentation is a strategic approach that enables businesses to identify distinct customer groups and deliver targeted, personalized communications and offerings. So this is done in order to enhance customer satisfaction, engagement, as well as loyalty. Moving on, so customer segmentation practices differ significantly between online as well as physical store retailers. So customer segmentation, like I mentioned, it varies significantly between online and physical store retailers. So traditional brick and mortar retailers primarily rely on demographic variables, geographic locations, as well as observed in-store behaviors to segment customers. However, in contrast, online retailers benefit from a rich digital footprints left by customers through website interactions, social media engagement, browsing patterns, clickstream data, as well as purchase histories. So, this wealth of data enables e commerce platforms to perform more granular and sophisticated segmentation based on behavioral analytics and predictive modeling. Now, traditional rule based segmentation, which is often grounded in demographics or broad RFM cutoffs, these techniques struggle to surface subtle patterns embedded in high dimensional online retail data. As an alternative to rule based manual approaches, unsupervised machine learning algorithms, specifically clustering techniques, have emerged as pivotal tools for data driven customer segmentation in e commerce contexts. So, by utilizing these clustering techniques like K means, mini batch K means, or DB scan, so online retailers can uncover latent customer segments, facilitating targeted marketing efforts, personalized product recommendations, as well as optimized customer relationship management strategies. Now, a little bit of background about ferns and petals. So, customer segmentation in online gifting, and here I would specifically address the curious case of ferns and petals. So, Ferns and Petals is India's largest online gifting platform, and it offers a diverse range of products and services to cater to various occasions and sentiments. So, rationale for a problem solution approach emerges. Ferns and Petals. So, Ferns and Petals has a product catalog spanning perishables, fresh flowers, cakes, durable keepsakes. So, comparing multiple clustering paradigms can illuminate segments that differ not only in recency frequency monitoring, which is RFM behavior, but also in occasion timing, fulfillment preferences, as well as add on propensities and basket sizes. So, basically, the case of Ferns and Petals is that they have fragmented customer insights. So FNP currently relies on broad occasion categories such as birthdays, anniversaries, festivals. So, however, within each occasion, there are diverse motivations, price sensitivities, and product preferences that remain hidden. Secondly, a rising acquisition and retention costs. So, digital ad inflation and new entrants in the gifting space are eroding margins. Thirdly, underleveraged data assets. FNP possesses a rich trove of clickstream, but not much analytics on it. Lastly, the need for scalable personalization. As mentioned previously as well, manual rule-based recommendations struggle to keep pace with FNP's expanding SKU and real-time demand spikes. So ML-based segments will enable data-driven, scalable, and automated personalization. So moving ahead, this is a literature review that I had conducted, and the literature review basically spans across multiple subsegments within clustering literature. So, from a technical perspective, the process of customer segmentation via clustering comprises five major stages. Preliminarily being exploratory data analysis, followed by feature selection, clustering implementation, model evaluation, and finally validation. So, EDA or exploratory data analysis is an iterative, largely visual statistical approach for summarizing the main characteristics, distributions, and relationships in a data set to generate hypotheses and then guide subsequent modeling decisions. Feature selection, on the other hand, is the process of identifying the most relevant input variables, that is, features for clustering. This step ensures that the clustering algorithm focuses on meaningful dimensions, enhancing the interpretability and performance of the resulting segments. So, once these features are selected, then the clustering algorithms are applied to group customers into different clusters based on feature similarity. Finally, evaluation metrics assess the quality of clustering output. Unlike supervised learning, where there are ground truth labels, clustering lacks ground truth labels. So, internal, external, and relative metrics are generally used. Finally, validation measures the robustness, stability, and generalizability of the clustering results. Now, moving on to the problem statement. So, the research objectives and questions for the study were multifold. And these are five bullet points that we put together for the research objectives and the questions. So primarily what I did was to source and prepare customer data. So source 12 months of publicly available anonymized e-commerce data involving transactions, customer demographics, etc. for an online gifting store. So this was the UCI retail data set that I had used as a proxy for FNP data, since we don't have the proprietary FNP data. Secondly, compare clustering techniques, implement and evaluate various prominent clustering algorithms on the sourced dataset. Thirdly, selecting the optimal model. So for this, statistical metrics such as internal validity metrics like silhouette score and bootstrap cluster stability analysis, as well as various business criteria such as segment size, interpretability, revenue concentration. So these metrics are used to identify the most actionable segmentation scheme. Next, develop segment personas. So profile each segment on occasion mix, basket size, frequency, channel preference, holiday proximity, etc. And then lastly, map personalization strategies and recommendations. So recommend campaign triggers, product bundles, dynamic pricing, as well as loyalty mechanics tailored to each segment. Further, to build up upon these research objectives, there were some guiding research questions, which are primarily being which clustering technique produces the most cohesive, stable, and business actionable customer segments for FNP's online retail data. Secondly, how do the derived segments differ in terms of purchasing behavior, that is recency, purchasing frequency, occasion frequency, as well as average spend? Lastly, what personalization levers like product recommendations, timing, messaging, offers, etc., align best with the needs of each segment? Now, moving on to the methodology section. So, the methodology section comprised of a research design overview. So, the research design overview adopted was a quantitative and explanatory research design grounded in data driven discovery, following specifically the CRISP DM lifecycle. So, this was done to ensure that every analytical decision directly advances the research objectives. A comparative experimental approach was employed to benchmark multiple clustering algorithms, ultimately selecting the solution that maximized both statistical validity and business utility for FNP. So, as per the CRISP DM lifecycle, as you can see, first it starts with business understanding, then data understanding, then data preparation, feature engineering, and feature selection, then modeling, then evaluation, validation, as well as deployment. So for deployment, I used a simple Streamlit web application, which I launched through the Jupyter Notebook itself. So then moving on to the methodology, which is the analytics breakdown by the Jupyter Notebook. So analytics objectives achieved in each sequential Jupyter Notebook have been detailed over here. So there are total 6 Jupyter Notebooks, which I've dissected the analytics across for ease of business stakeholder understanding and interactivity and interpretability as well. So the first notebook was introduction, which is the introduction to the business context. So the purpose of this notebook was to introduce stakeholders to a concise business case, describe the data set that will be used as a proxy for proprietary F&P data, and outline the analytical pipeline to be followed in subsequent notebooks. The second sequential notebook involved data cleaning and feature engineering. So the activities completed in this notebook included acquisition and inspection of the raw UCI online retail data. Then the dataset was trimmed to a 1 year analysis window, that is 1st December 2010 to 30th November 2011. Any cancellations or duplicate transactions or invalid quantities, they were removed and the rows were dropped from the data frame. Then the prices were converted from Great British Pound, which is GBP, to INR using daily Bank of England spot rates. Next, RFM and additional customer related features such as average basket size, event proximity features such as days to Mother's Day, days to Father's Day. These features were engineered. Then the outliers for outlier handling, Winsorization at interquartile range was used to mitigate the influence on skewing the clustering analysis. Thereafter, the features were scaled and exported to the final customer feature table. And then we proceeded to notebook 3, which is feature selection and exploration. So the processed and scaled customer feature table was generated in notebook 2 and it was loaded. Then the feature set A, which is RFM only, and feature set B, which is RFM plus additional features, these were defined, two different competing feature sets. Then pairwise relationships and correlation matrices were also visualized. Then PCA was used to assess potential cluster separability. Next, clustering evaluation was performed in the next notebook. So for this, the customer feature table generated in notebook 2 was again loaded and the two feature sets A and B were defined. Specifically, the clustering algorithms and hyperparameter ranges were also defined in this notebook. Then the silhouette scores and bootstrap stability analysis was completed, employing the adjusted RAND index for each pipeline. And the results for the pipeline performance were summarized, visualized, and analyzed. And the best performing model was refit on the entire data set primarily. Regarding segment profiling and persona generation, so the clustered customer table was loaded and the cluster level summary statistics such as averages and means by size, RFM, basket size, and event proximity were computed. Then corresponding to these cluster level summary statistics, persona titles and narratives are generated for the clusters. So the personas are then also mapped to marketing triggers, channels, as well as offers. And the persona metadata was persisted for deployment. Lastly, in the last notebook, an interactive Streamlit integration was built within the Jupyter Notebook. So for this, the persisted best performing model, standard scaler as well as persona metadata was loaded. Then a file upload app for new customer feature set via Streamlit integration was built in. And this was done to introduce a one-click interface for non-technical and non-data science users. So to enable them to scale, predict, and summarize the uploaded customer feature data on the fly. Next, this is an overview block diagram of the test case pipelines for comparative modeling and evaluation. So primarily 12 pipelines were built for evaluating 2 feature selection techniques, 3 clustering algorithms, 1 model evaluation metric, and 1 model validation technique. So the first feature selection technique was classic RFM or plain RFM, recency frequency monitoring. The second feature set was feature selection technique was enriched RFM, which is RFM plus additional features like basket size and event proximity, etc. So the three clustering algorithms which are layered on top of these two feature selection techniques were k-means, then agglomerative hierarchical clustering with word linkage, then DB-scan, density-based scanning. Then the two evaluation and validity testing techniques which are used was silhouette index, and the second one was bootstrap stability index, bootstrap stability analysis using adjusted RAND index. So this resulted in a total of 12 test case pipeline. Next, we move on to the rationale for selecting the techniques. So for feature selection, recency, frequency, and monetary was analyzed because this has been extensively studied in the literature. And this was also done to test the influence of domain-based feature selection techniques on clustering performance. It also has high interpretability in business contexts. Secondly, principal component analysis was used for for dimensionality reduction and to test the influence of purely data-driven feature selection techniques on clustering performance. Secondly, for clustering algorithms, three major clustering algorithms were benchmarked. The first of them being k-means, which is the baseline and historical best performer. Second of them being agglomerative hierarchical with word linkage. So this was used to evaluate the influence of shape agnostic grouping on model performance and research objectives. Thirdly, a TB scan was used to study the influence of dense purchase microsegments detection on model performance and research objectives. Next, for hyperparameter search, k-means for k in a subset of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 was used. Hierarchical for k in 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 again, because these metrics are basically selected on the basis of elbow plot. So where the knee bend occurs in the elbow plot, that is the k that was used primarily as the best performer. Then for DB scan for epsilon in 0.3, 0.5, 0.7, the minimum sample size of 5. So for optimal model selection, two validation metrics were used, one of them being the silhouette index for objectively assessing clustering performance. Secondly, a relative validative technique, validating technique, which is 30-fold bootstrap resampling using ARI to quantify cluster persistence and stability and consistency. So once the optimal clustering pipeline was finalized, the resultant cluster labels, which are representing the different customer segments, they were used to profile the segments for generating customer personas, followed by personalization mapping for appropriate customer targeting. So for segment profiling, creating customer personas and personalization mapping, this is the framework which was used, which is a flowchart. So the segmentation results, as can be seen over here. So segmentation results of the optimal clustering pipeline. These basically fed into the so every customer was tagged with a stable cluster ID 0, 1, and 2. So following that, the segment profiles were built that business stakeholders can understand easily. So these being on the basis of cluster level summary statistics, and these included descriptive statistics, for instance, per cluster means, medians of RFM, basket size, seasonality, etc. These were compared across the three clusters 0, 1, 2. Then psychographic labeling was also conducted. So as part of this, numeric traits which are translated into memorable business interpretable names such as champions, potential loyalists, or at risk or dormant or seasonal shoppers, these were defined. Then narrative insight, which is the persona narrative, was also created. So motivations, pain points, and CLV potentials were summarized, and links to FNP value propositions were also defined. Personalization levers were also defined for each segment, which are the product recommendations, such as for champions, loyalty reward email after every third purchase. Then for the potential loyalists, so the moderately engaged, bi-monthly value bundle promotions. Then for the at-risk and dormant seasonal shoppers, holiday countdown, push notifications. Next, moving on to the results and discussion. So the overall business outcomes which are achieved by this project included that personalization at scale. So online gifting is fiercely competitive and customer engagement via generic emails often fails to alleviate churn. So this results in a lot of wasted marketing spend, and since FNP's organizational strategy emphasizes personalization at scale, so considering FNP's broader strategic goals, the data-driven customer segmentation undertaken in this body of work allowed for pinpointing of high-value loyalists, and these can be targeted with early access premium bundles. Secondly, reviving of dormant shoppers via win-back coupons timed near festivities. Thirdly, upselling to single product buyers through curated add-on recommendations. So, key summary of the deliverables and their corresponding key impact for FNP is outlined in Table 4. So the deliverables were segmentation model, which is the best performing segmentation model, including the code. And this was built in via integrated via Streamlit integration for all the on the fly classification for new customers. Secondly, 5 persona cards were defined for the segments. So this enabled fast alignment across marketing, customer success, and supply teams. Thirdly, a Streamlit demo. So a click to upload interface with zero data science overhead was also engineered into the project. So moving on to the results and discussion by notebook, the notebook and notebook by notebook breakdown. So in this case, the UCI online retail data set was loaded, and some key statistics such as outliers and missing values and duplicate transactions, they were identified. So this is the first, these are the first 5 rows of the data set, and these are the data description. For instance, as you can see, customer ID has a lot of missing values in it, and also description has a lot of missing values in it. So even before exploratory data analysis and feature engineering was conducted, a quick month-by-month plot was constructed, which revealed gifting peaks on Christmas, Mother's Day, etc. So this was done to reassure stakeholders that seasonal signals were present and customer activity was not consistent throughout all the 12 months. Then moving on to the results and discussion from Notebook 2. So in this notebook, primarily, as mentioned before, the currencies were converted from pound sterling to INR, and corresponding column was merged into the original data frame. And then outlier treatment via Vensorization was also conducted at interquartile range. So after this, each customer level feature was standardized as well as normalized, which is mean equals 0 and standard deviation equals 1. So this was done in order to ensure that the clustering treats every metric equally. And then the joblib file as well as the scaled customer DF, they were saved and persisted for use in the downstream notebooks. Now moving on to notebook 3, which is the feature selection and exploratory analysis notebook. So post cleaning, the transaction level data was aggregated into the following customer metrics and engineered features. So these engineered features being recency frequency monitoring as well as average basket size and 6 event proximity features as well. So these are basically the mean distance in terms of days in to each major holiday in the UK. For them being New Year's Day, Valentine's Day, Easter, Mother's Day, etc. And these customer level features were once again merged into the customer DF, the data frame. Next, the correlation studies were also conducted. So pairwise relationships between the different features of feature set A as well as feature set B were also conducted. So the interpretation from these graphs were basically that the RFM features recency, frequency, and monetary. So these cluster tightly in one corner of the 2D space with heavy overlap. So frequency and recency appear almost discretized, which is vertical and horizontal stripes, reflecting the integer count of orders and days. Further, a mild negative relationship between the recency and both frequency as well as monetary was detected, but overall the points occupied were found to occupy a single dense cloud, suggesting that RFM alone may not be able to separate distinct customer groups effectively. So for feature set B, also adding average basket size and the 6 event proximity features produced a much more dispersed point cloud, as can be seen over here. And then the event proximity features such as Easter, Valentine's Day, Christmas, etc., they form V-shaped bands indicating strong mutual correlation. So most of these new features appear largely orthogonal to the RFM axis, and they introduce fresh dimensions of variation such as customers who tend to purchase close to specific holidays. The increased spread and additional angles in the scatter plots preliminarily suggest that clustering on the enriched feature set will be able to find more well-separated actionable segments than clustering on RFM alone. Next, we have the correlation matrices. So feature correlations were computed and visualized to identify multicollinearity that may affect clustering. So here is the correlation matrix for feature set A. And in the next slide, we will also have the correlation matrix for feature set B. So interpretation of the correlation matrix of feature set A was that frequency and monetary are strongly positively correlated with 0.72 correlation, confirming that customers who buy more also often spend more. Recency was moderately negatively correlated with both frequency with minus 0.5 and monetary minus 0.36, indicating that more recent purchasers tend to be higher value and frequent buyers. Overall, the RFM dimensions captured related but distinct aspects of customer behavior with some redundancy between frequency and spend. Next, moving on to the correlation matrix of feature set B. So this was the feature set with RFM plus additional features. So for feature set B, the 6 event proximity features such as days to New Year's, Valentine's, etc., they are very highly correlated, intercorrelated. For instance, you can see 0.62 to 0.98. So this reflects that customers who shop near one holiday often shop near others. The average basket size exhibits only weak correlations, which is 0.04 to 0.23, with both RFM and the event proximities. So this suggests that it adds a new orthogonal dimension of order of complexity. Recency retains moderate correlations with major holiday proximities, such as minus 0.76 to New Year's or Christmas, but is almost uncorrelated with Father's Day, which is 0.02, implying nuanced seasonal patterns. So summarily, the enriched feature set injects fresh variation beyond classic RFM, especially via basket size. However, the days to holidays metrics are internally redundant and they may benefit from consolidation, example via PCA or feature selection before clustering. Next, we have the PCA projections in 2D space for both feature set and feature B. So the dimensionality reduction via PCA was conducted for deeper insight into potential cluster structure. So the interpretation from these PCA projections is that specifically for feature set A, as can be seen, the points occupy a narrow V-shaped band in the PC1, PC2 plane, and they also have heavy overlap and little natural pockets or clusters. Almost all of the variance is captured along a single direction, reflecting the strong correlation between frequency and monetary spend. So this limited dispersion suggests that RFM alone may not yield well-separated customer groups. On the other hand, for feature set B, the projection is substantially more dispersed across both principal components with a more circular multi-lobe cloud. So the additional features, basket size and holiday proximities introduce orthogonal dimensions of variation. So these pull points away from the RFM line. This increased spread in emerging subclusters indicate that the enriched feature set should enable more distinct and actionable segmentation. So in summary, feature set A, uh, classic RFM may yield overlapping clusters, whereas feature set B, which introduces behavioral dimensions, may support more distinct cluster and actionable clustering. Next, we can move on to the results and discussion obtained in the clustering and evaluation notebook, which is notebook 4. So for this, we can see the top 10 performing pipelines. Top 10 performing pipelines with rank 1, which is the winner, being K means on RFM at K equals 3. So this pipeline achieved the highest silhouette score 0.475 and by far the best bootstrap stability 0.984. So this indicates three well separated highly robust clusters on classic RFM dimensions. Secondly, a hierarchical agglomerative with word linkage k equals 3 on RFM. So this ranks second by silhouette score 0.438 but is also notably less stable 0.585 bootstrap stability score. So this suggests more variability across bootstrap samples. So as you can see, there are other pipelines that were also featured prominently in the top 10. DBScan and hierarchical agglomerative did not perform that well because specifically in the stability, it was not found to be, while it was found to be reasonably cohesive but not stable. So key takeaway from this was that a simple three cluster segmentation on the standard RFM features using k-means. So it not only produces the tightest, most interpretable clusters, but also the most reproducible results in bootstrap sampling. Next, some visualizations were also conducted to compare the performance of the pipelines. So preliminary, one of them being the visualization of the pipeline performance via silhouette score versus bootstrap stability plot. So the interpretation from this was that the highest silhouette score, as you can see, 0.47 and near perfect bootstrap stability. So 0.98. So it occurs at for k means, which is the blue circles, at k equals 3. So it indicates very well separated, highly reproducible clusters and classic RFM features. So the key takeaway from this was that a three cluster k-means on the standard RFM feature set achieves the best balance of compactness as well as reproducibility. So while RFM plus and DBScan can yield stable groupings, they do not match the cohesion of the RFM only k-mean solution. Similarly, while RFM and RFM plus as well as hierarchical agglomerative clustering can yield cohesive groupings, they do not match the reproducibility, which is the bootstrap stability of the RFM only k-mean solution. Further, to deepen an intuitive understanding of the feature set and clustering algorithm pipelines, beyond the single point summary of silhouette score versus bootstrap stability plot, so three other complementary views, which are a PCA scatter of the final clusters, followed by a bar chart of cluster size distribution, as well as a heat map of cluster centroids was also conducted. So as you can see, the PCA scatter of the RFM feature set k equals 3. It reveals three well-separated customer groups in 2D space, and the clusters are cluster 0, 1 and 2. So cluster 0, which is blue, or the potential loyalists. So this occupies the lower left region, low PC1, low PC2, corresponding to customers with moderate to high frequency and monetary spend and lowest recency, that is the most recent purchases. So this tight, dense cloud indicates a highly cohesive segment, which are prime targets for re-engagement or loyalty incentives. Then the elongated shape also suggests some diversity in how recently they shopped, making them prime targets for re-engagement or loyalty incentives. Then cluster 1, as you can see, orange, which are the champions. So this falls along the right side. So high PC1, round 0 PC2. And this represents the customers with the highest total monetary spend and frequency, but slightly less transactions than cluster 0. So this elongated shape also suggests some diversity in how recently they shopped, indicating the evergreen nature of the segment. Then we have cluster 2, which is the green, which is the at risk or the dormant group. So this appears at the top left, low PC1, high PC2, and this captures those with low frequency and monetary value and higher recency, that is longer time since last purchase. So this group is the most dispersed in PC2, indicating varied behavioral patterns around recency. They are strong candidates for win-back campaigns. Further, we have the cluster size distribution bar chart. So the bar chart shows the number of customers in each of the three k-means clusters. K equals 3 on the RFM feature set. So cluster 0 has 2251 customers. So this represents roughly 52% of the customer base. So this is the largest segment, which is the engaged majority, characterized by moderately recent purchases, frequency and spend. Then we have cluster 1, which is a mid-sized group with the highest frequency and spend, but slightly less recent activity than cluster 0, the champions. Then we also have cluster 2, which is similar in size to cluster 1 but defined by lower purchase frequency and spend and the longest time since last purchase, which is the at-risk segment. So a key takeaway from this bar chart was that over half of the customer base falls into cluster 0, which are steady, moderate buyers, while clusters 1 and 2 split the remainder almost evenly, allowing F&P's marketing team to allocate roughly one quarter of resources to nurturing the champions and the other quarter to re-engagement efforts for the at-risk customers. Next, we have the heat map of cluster centroids. So for cluster 0, we can see that all the three metrics are slightly below average, indicating that the customers who shop more recently than the average, but with only modest order frequency and spend. Next, for cluster 1, we have the champions, which are strongly negative recency, very recent, and very high frequency and monetary. So this is the high value loyal core. Then we have high recency, which is long time since last purchase, coupled with low frequency and monetary. So these are the customers who have lapsed and spent the least. Next, we have the results for the segment profiling and persona generation. So the best performing pipeline, as detailed in previous slides, in the previous sections, was on feature set RFM, which is a classic RFM, then K means at K equals 3, and silhouette score. So this basically yielded silhouettes, the highest silhouette score and exceptional stability score. So this model was persisted and the cluster labels were saved. So basis this model, the cluster level summary statistics for the best performing clustering model were conducted. So then we have the three distribution into three clusters, 0, 1 and 2. So some key insights from the interpretation of the cluster level summary statistics are listed here. So the persona archetypes that were generated were for cluster 1, these are the high value loyalists or the champions. So these customers purchase frequently and high frequency and high monetary. Second, we had the occasional value seekers or the moderate engagers. So the customers in this segment order moderately. And the third, which is the cluster 2, which is the seasonal shoppers. So these customers order frequently, less frequently, and they tend to time their purchases around major holidays. So corresponding to these cluster personas, marketing recommendations are also generated. So for cluster 1, as we can see that they are the high value loyalists or the champions. So the campaign trigger recommended for them was loyalty reward email after every third purchase. So with communication channel was both email as well as SMS since they are high value customers. And then the offer was 10% of premium bundles. Next, for cluster 0, which are the moderately engaged group, we had bi-monthly value bundle promotions via email only. And when offers, we had 199 gift with purchase offers. Secondly, since the cluster number 2 generally are the seasonal shoppers, and this is the group that tends to shop around holidays. So in order to engage them better, holiday countdown reminders via push notifications and seasonal combo deals would be a good idea. Finally, in the sixth notebook, the persona metadata was used and linked to a Streamlit integration within Jupyter Notebook itself. And the best performing clustering pipeline was then deployed via the Streamlit front-end web application from within Jupyter Lab to enable a single-click interface for performing the clustering by business stakeholders. So coming to the conclusion and future works inspired by this research. So this research allowed a rigorous and comparative benchmarking of k-means, agglomerative hierarchical and DB scan on both classic RFM and enriched behavioral features, enriched RFM as well. So this showed that k-means plus RFM, which is k-means with k equals 3, three clusters basically, on classic or traditional RFM features delivered the best balance of interpretability, silhouette, and bootstrap stability scores. So this also allowed for actionable segments to be identified, such as champions, potential loyalists, and at-risk or dormant seasonal shoppers. So this was visualized by PCA and centroid heat maps and mapped to tailored triggers, offers, and channels for F&P's gifting context. The originality of this work lies in bridging analytics and practice. Robust cluster validation methods plus explicit marketing recommendations close the gap between data science and managerial implementation. Key contribution to literature and FNP strategy confirms continued value of simple interpretable RFM-based segmentation for occasion-aware hyper-personalization, supporting FNP's competitive differentiation goals. Limitations include use of a proxy single-layer public data set, so missing richer proprietary clickstream or real-time data, and also redundancy in holiday proximity variables. So future research directions can be to apply these models to FNP's own longitudinal data, explore incremental streaming clustering for dynamic behavior shifts, and incorporate fairness and transparency considerations in segment-based marketing. Moving on to the final segment, which is research reflection. So this research primarily applying clustering in a live business context allowed me to sharpen my critical thinking skills, balancing mathematical rigor with managerial evidence in a true reflection and action cycle. So it also allowed me to hone my data storytelling and stakeholder translation skills, apart from strengthening self-management and decision judgment as well, since I'm also a full-time employee, and this research forced disciplined prioritization and pragmatic satisficing. Thirdly, it also allowed me to build resilience and systems thinking, deployment setbacks and transformative learning triggers, and then followed by heightened ethical and governance awareness as well. So this, all in all, summarily, this project allowed me to solidify my identity as an analytics leader. And this experience affirmed that effective data leadership blends technical mastery with trust building, cross-functional collaboration, and continuous reflective learning, capabilities which are now integral to my career trajectory. So with this, my presentation also ends, and I would express my sincere gratitude to my research thesis supervisor who guided me across every phase of this journey. And I would also like to mention the support of my family and my friends in allowing me to, enabling me to complete this project successfully. Thank you.